Peterborough Cathedral, properly the Cathedral Church of St. Peter, St. Paul and St. Andrew, also known as St. Peter's Cathedral in the United Kingdom, is the seat of the Anglican Bishop of Peterborough, dedicated to St. Peter, St. Paul and St. Andrew, whose statues look down from the three high gables of the famous West Front. Although it was founded in the Anglo-Saxon period, its architecture is mainly Norman, following a rebuilding in the 12th century. With Durham and Ely Cathedrals, it is one of the most important 12th century buildings in England to have remained largely intact. Despite extensions and restoration, Peterborough Cathedral is known for its imposing early English Gothic West Front, which with its three enormous arches, is without architectural precedent and with no direct successor. The appearance is slightly asymmetrical, as one of the two towers that rise from behind the facade was never completed, but this is only visible from a distance. History: Anglo-Saxon origins. The original church, known as Medeshamsted, was founded in the reign of the Anglo-Saxon King Peter of the Middle Angles in about 655 AD. As one of the first centres of Christianity in central England, the monastic settlement with which the church was associated lasted at least until 870, when it was supposedly destroyed by Vikings. In an alcove of the Lady Chapel lies an ancient stone carving, the headstone. This medieval carving of 12 monks, 6 on each side, commemorates the destruction of the monastery and the death of the abbot and monks when the area was sacked by the Vikings in 864. The headstone was likely carved sometime after the raid, when the monastery slipped into decline. In the mid-10th century monastic revival, a Benedictine abbey was created and endowed in 966, principally by Athelwold, Bishop of Winchester, from what remained of the earlier church, with a basilica furbished with suitable structures of halls, and enriched with surrounding lands and more extensive buildings, which saw the aisle built out to the west with a second tower added. The original central tower was, however, retained. It was dedicated to St. Peter, and came to be called a borough. Hence the town surrounding the abbey was eventually named Peterborough. The community was further revived in 972 by Dunstan, Archbishop of Canterbury. This newer church had as its major focal point a substantial western tower with a Rhenish helm, and was largely constructed of ashles. Only a small section of the foundations of the Anglo-Saxon church remain beneath the south transept, but there are several significant artifacts, including Anglo-Saxon carvings such as the headstone from the earlier building. In 2008, Anglo-Saxon grave markers were reported to have been found by workmen repairing a wall in the cathedral precincts. The grave markers are said to date to the 11th century, and probably belonged to townsfolk. Norman and medieval architectural evolution. Although damaged during the struggle between the Norman invaders and local folk hero, Hereward the Wake, it was repaired and continued to thrive until destroyed by an accidental fire in 1116. This event necessitated the building of a new church in the Norman style, begun by Abbot John de Sayers on 8 March 1118. By 1193 the building was completed to the western end of the nave, including the central tower and a decorated wooden ceiling of the nave. The ceiling, completed between 1230 and 1250, still survives. It is unique in Britain and one of only 4 such ceilings in the whole of Europe. It has been overpainted twice, once in 1745, then in 1834, but still retains the character and style of the original. The church was largely built of Barnick limestone from quarries on its own land, and it was paid annually for access to these quarries by the builders of Ely Cathedral and Ramsey Abbey in thousands of eels. Cathedral historians believe that part of the placing of the church in the the location it is in is due to the easy ability to transfer quarried stones by river and then to the existing site, allowing it to grow without being relocated. Then, after completing the western transept and adding the great West Front portico in 1237, the medieval masons switched over to the new Gothic style. Apart from changes to the windows, the insertion of a porch to support the freestanding pillars of the portico, and the addition of a new building at the east end around the beginning of the 16th century, the structure of the building remains essentially as it was on completion almost 800 years ago. The completed building was consecrated in 1238 by Robert Grose as Bishop of Lincoln, within whose diocese it then fell. The trio of arches forming the Great West Front, the defining image of Peterborough Cathedral, is unrivaled in medieval architecture. The line of spires behind it, topping an unprecedented 4 towers, evolved for more practical reasons. Chief amongst them was the wish to retain the earlier Norman towers, which became obsolete when the Gothic front was added, instead of being demolished and replaced with new stretches of wall. These old towers were retained and embellished with cornices and other Gothic decor, while 2 new towers were added to create a continuous frontage. The Norman tower was rebuilt in the decorated Gothic style in about 1350 to 1380, with 2 tiers of Romanesque windows combined into a single set of Gothic windows, with the turreted cap and pinnacles removed and replaced by battlements. Between 1496 and 1508 the presbytery roof was replaced and the new building, a rectangular building built around the end of the Norman eastern apse with perpendicular fan vaulting, was added. Monastic life. The existing mid-12th century records of Hugh Candidus, a monk, list the abbey's reliquaries as including 2 pieces of swaddling clothes which wrapped the baby Jesus, pieces of Jesus's manger, a part of the 5 loaves which fed the 5,000, a piece of the raiment of Mary the mother of Jesus, a piece of Aaron's rod, and relics of St. Peter, St. Paul and St. Andrew, to whom the church is dedicated. The supposed arm of Oswald of Northumbria disappeared from its chapel, probably during the Reformation, despite a watchtower having been built for monks to guard its reliquary. Various contact relics of Thomas Becket were brought from Canterbury in a special reliquary by its prior Benedict when he was promoted to abbot of Peterborough. These items underpinned the importance of what is today Peterborough Cathedral. At the zenith of its wealth just before the Reformation, it had the 6th largest monastic income in England, and had 120 monks, an almoner, an infirmarian, a sacristan and a salera. Tudor in 1541. Following Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries, the relics were lost. The church survived by being selected as the cathedral of the Anglican Diocese of Peterborough. Henry's former wife, Catherine of Aragon, had been buried there in 1536. Her grave can still be seen and is still honored by visitors who decorate it with flowers and pomegranates. It carries the legend Catherine, Queen of England, a title she was denied at the time of her death. In 1587, the body of Mary, Queen of Scots, was initially buried here after her execution at nearby Fotheringhay Castle, but it was later removed to Westminster Abbey on the orders of her son, King James I of England. Civil war. To present the cathedral was vandalized during the English Civil War in 1643 by parliamentarian troops. As was common at the time, almost all the stained glass and the medieval choir stalls were destroyed, and the high altar and reredos were demolished, as were the cloisters and Lady Chapel. All the monuments and memorials of the cathedral were also damaged or destroyed. Some of the damage was repaired during the 17th and 18th centuries. In 1883, extensive restoration work began, with the interior pillars, the choir and the west front being completely rebuilt under the supervision of John Loughborough Pearson, and new hand-carved choir stalls, cathedra, choir pulpit and the marble pavement and high altar being added. A stepped level of battlements was removed from the central tower, reducing its height slightly. In the early evening of the 22nd of November 2001, the cathedral was hit by a fire thought to have been started deliberately amongst plastic chairs stored in the north choir aisle. Fortunately, the fire was spotted by one of the vergers, allowing a swift response by emergency services. The timing was particularly unfortunate, as a complete restoration of the painted wooden ceiling was nearing completion. The oily smoke given off by the plastic chairs was particularly damaging, coating much of the building with a sticky black layer. The seat of the fire was close to the organ, and the combination of direct damage from the fire and the water used to extinguish necessitated a full-scale rebuild of the instrument, putting it out of action for several years. An extensive program of repairs to the West Front began in July 2006 and has cost in excess of £500,000. This work is concentrated around the statues located in niches which have been so badly affected by years of pollution and weathering that, in some cases, they have only stayed intact thanks to iron bars inserted through them from the head to the body. The program of work has sought donors to adopt a stone. The sculptor Alan Durst was responsible for some of the work on the statues on the West Front. Misericords. It is believed that Peterborough Cathedral originally had a set of over 30 misericords dating from the 14th century. However, only 3 now survive. Dean and Chapter. Dean, Charles Taylor. Canon Precentor, Bruce Ruddock. Canon Missioner, Jonathan Baker. Vicar of Peterborough, Ian Black. Burials. Kinneberger, Kineswide and Tibber. Kinneberger and Kineswide were sisters. Kinneberger founded an abbey for both monks and nuns in Castor, becoming the first abbess. Kinneberger was buried in her church, but both of the remains were later translated to Peterborough Abbey, now Peterborough Cathedral, along with those of the kinswoman Tibber. Kinneberger became revered as a saint soon after her death. Her remains were moved once more to Thorney Abbey some time later. All 3 women are considered saints. Ralph the Timid, Earl of Hereford and nephew of Edward the Confessor. Queen Catherine of Aragon, Queen of England under Henry VIII. William Connor Magee, Alexander of Holderness, 12th century Abbot of Peterborough. John Hinchliffe, Bishop of Peterborough. John Towers, Bishop of Peterborough. Francis D., Bishop of Peterborough. Richard Howland, Bishop of Peterborough. John Chambers, 1st Bishop of Peterborough. Alfred Pottock, medieval Archbishop of York and Bishop of Worcester. Sir Nijage, medieval Archbishop of York. Reliquary at Peterborough. A number of saints were interred in the altar at Peterborough. Wilfrid Tatbert, Sigrid nicknamed Pius Pater, Botwine Reverendus Sacerdos, Albert Prareglarus Minister, Wilgar and Wildgal Modestus. Gallery. Cathedral music. Organ. Details of the organ from the National Pipe Organ Register. Organists. The records of organists at Peterborough Cathedral list Richard Story as organist in 1540. Notable organists of Peterborough Cathedral have included Stanley Vann, Sir Malcolm Sargent and Thomas Armstrong.